I'm Samantha Mitchell, 27 years old, and 3 years ago my parents told me I was crazy for wanting to quit my stable job. I had asked them for $70,000 to start my AI finance company, and they flat out refused. Too risky, they said. What happened next still feels surreal. Complete strangers on Reddit believed in me when my own family wouldn't. Today, our company is valued at $47 million. Before I dive into my journey, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If this story resonates with you, please hit like and subscribe, as I share how strangers on the internet became my business family when my own family wouldn't take a chance on me. I grew up in a typical middle-class neighborhood in Boston. My parents, Robert and Barbara Mitchell, built their lives around stability and certainty. Dad spent 30 years at the same insurance company, climbing the corporate ladder methodically. Mom taught second grade at the local elementary school. They owned a modest 3-bedroom house, took one vacation a year to Cape Cod, and had a retirement plan that they never deviated from. Their mantra was always slow and steady wins the race. My love affair with computers began when I was 9. I vividly remember the day Dad brought home our first desktop computer, a bulky beige machine that hummed like a small aircraft. While my parents used it mainly for email and occasional web browsing, I was completely mesmerized. I would spend hours exploring every program, trying to understand how it all worked beneath the surface. By 12, I was teaching myself basic coding from library books. "She's always on that thing," my mom would complain to relatives. "We can barely get her to come to dinner." What they didn't understand was that I wasn't just playing, I was building. I created my first program at 13, a simple calculator that could also convert currencies based on daily rates. Nothing revolutionary, but it was mine, built from scratch. High school was a blur of advanced math classes and computer science electives. When MIT acceptance letter came, my parents were proud but concerned about the cost. They had saved for college, but MIT wasn't cheap. Still, they supported this dream. It was conventional enough to fit their worldview of success. A prestigious degree leading to a stable corporate job. At MIT, I thrived academically, but felt constrained by the traditional paths presented to us. While my classmates competed for internships at Google, Microsoft, and Goldman Sachs, I was sketching ideas for startups in the margins of my notebooks. During junior year, I met Professor Liang, who became my mentor. Unlike most faculty, who pushed students toward established companies, Professor Liang had founded 2 successful tech startups before returning to academia. "The next wave of financial technology will be personalized," he told me during one of our coffee meetings. "Banks provide generalized services, but individuals have unique financial patterns and needs." His words sparked something in me. I'd always been frustrated by generic financial advice that never seemed applicable to my specific situation. What if software could analyze your specific spending patterns and financial goals, then provide truly personalized guidance? The idea for FinSmart AI was born in my senior year. I envisioned an AI-driven platform that would learn from users' financial behavior and provide hyper-personalized advice, not just budgeting tips, but adaptive strategies that evolved as your life changed. After graduation, I took the safe route initially, accepting a software engineering position at a financial services firm in Boston. The salary was excellent, the benefits comprehensive. My parents were ecstatic. Their daughter had made it. But while I was building features for a clunky, outdated banking system, my real passion project evolved nights and weekends. I spent 18 months developing the prototype for FinSmart AI. The algorithm could already analyze spending patterns and identify opportunities for savings that most humans would miss. Early tests with friends showed promising results, One discovered she was spending $347 monthly on subscription services she barely used. Another found a pattern of emotional spending that corresponded with work stress. Market research confirmed what I suspected. There was a huge untapped need for personalized financial guidance among millennials and Gen Z. Traditional financial advisors were too expensive for most, and existing apps offered only basic budgeting tools. The few competitors in the AI finance space were focused on investment rather than comprehensive personal finance management. I knew I needed about $70,000 to make FinSmart AI a reality, enough to support myself for a year while finalizing the product, creating a polished user interface, and launching a marketing campaign. The amount wasn't arbitrary. I had spreadsheets breaking down every expense, with contingency buffers built in. My first approach was traditional. I scheduled meetings with several angel investors in the Boston tech scene. These meetings were educational but frustrating. One investor loved the concept, but wanted 40% equity for $50,000, a terrible deal. Another was interested only if I would pivot to focus exclusively on crypto. A third simply said, "This space is too crowded with established players. Come back when you have 10,000 users." But how could I get users without funding to build and launch the product? Venture capital firms were even worse. They wanted to see traction, revenue, and growth before investing. It was the classic catch-22 of startup funding. As weeks of rejection turned into months, I realized I needed to consider alternate funding sources. My savings would cover maybe 2 months of full-time development, nowhere near enough. Bank loans required collateral I didn't have. Crowdfunding seemed unlikely to work for a financial product that didn't have a physical component. That's when I thought of my parents. They weren't wealthy, but they had substantial savings, home equity, and stable incomes. The $70,000 I needed was significant, but wouldn't bankrupt them if the worst happened. Plus, I had a detailed business plan, market research, and a working prototype. Surely they would see the potential and want to invest in their daughter's future. I spent a week preparing my pitch, creating a presentation that was both professional and accessible to non-tech people. I practiced in front of my mirror, anticipating their questions and concerns. I was nervous but hopeful as I drove to their house that Sunday evening in October. It felt like everything in my life had been building to this moment. Absolutely not. My father's words hung in the air between us, sharp and final. We were sitting at the dining table where I'd eaten thousands of family meals, beneath the chandelier they'd installed when I was in high school. My laptop was open, showing the last slide of my meticulously prepared presentation. My mother sat beside him, her expression a mixture of sympathy and agreement with his verdict. I had just spent 4 to 5 minutes walking them through everything: the market opportunity, the technology, the competition, the financial projections. I'd answered their questions patiently, even the ones that showed they didn't fully understand the technology. I'd been so sure they would say yes. "Dad, I've shown you the numbers. The return on investment could be substantial if it succeeds," he interrupted. "But most startups fail, Samantha. That's just a fact." He leaned forward, his reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. "Do you know how many tech startups go under within the first year? Almost 90%. But I'm not going in blind," I countered, trying to keep frustration from my voice. "I've got a working prototype, proven interest, and a solid." "Honey," my mother interjected, her voice taking on that soothing tone she'd used throughout my childhood, "we know you're brilliant with computers. No one's questioning that. But quitting a perfectly good job with benefits and security to chase a dream." She shook her head. "It's just too risky." "Too risky," I repeated, the words tasting bitter. "I'm not asking for a gift. This would be an investment. You'd have equity. Dad pushed his plate away and folded his hands on the table. Let me be direct, Samantha. Your mother and I have worked our entire lives to build financial security. That money you're asking for represents years of careful saving. We just can't gamble it on a startup, even yours. It's not a gamble when you've done the research and planning, I said, feeling a flush of anger. This isn't some whim. I've spent years developing this. In your spare time, Mom pointed out. While having the safety net of a regular paycheck. Because I need it to pay rent. But the prototype is ready now. The timing is critical. If I don't move on this, someone else will build it first. Dad sighed and removed his glasses, polishing them with his napkin, a habit when he was stressed. Look, we want you to be happy and successful. But the responsible thing would be to save up your own startup capital. Keep your job, live frugally, and build your business on the side until it's generating revenue. That would take years, I said, feeling desperation creeping in. The market won't wait. There's a window of opportunity here that's closing fast. Then start smaller, Mom suggested. Build something that doesn't require so much upfront investment. I closed my laptop with a bit more force than necessary. They didn't get it. They couldn't see past their own risk aversion to understand what I was trying to build. The disappointment was crushing. I had genuinely believed they would support me. So that's it. You won't help me. They exchanged glances, that parental telepathy they'd perfected over decades of marriage. We are helping you, Dad said firmly. By preventing you from making a costly mistake. Someday you'll thank us. I looked down at my barely touched dinner, fighting back tears. Not because they'd said no, though that hurt deeply, but because they'd dismissed my dream so easily. They hadn't even seriously considered it. In their minds, leaving the safety of corporate employment was always going to be the wrong choice. After an awkward dessert where we pretended everything was fine, I packed up my presentation and headed to the door. My younger sister Sarah, who had been silently witnessing the entire exchange, followed me out to my car. They're wrong, you know, she said quietly, hugging herself against the autumn chill. At 23, fresh out of college and working her first marketing job, Sarah had always been my ally. Doesn't matter if they are wrong if they won't invest, I said, tossing my laptop bag into the passenger seat more carelessly than usual. You'll find another way, Sarah insisted. Your idea is brilliant. Someone will see that. I gave her a quick hug. Thanks for the vote of confidence. At least one Mitchell believes in me. As I drove home to my apartment, the conversation replayed in my mind. I had anticipated objections, but not outright rejection. I'd thought that the family bond would count for something, that they would take a chance on me even if the idea seemed risky to them. That night, I barely slept. I stared at the ceiling, questioning everything. Was I delusional about FinSmart's potential? Was I making a terrible mistake even considering leaving my secure job? Or were my parents simply too risk-averse to recognize a genuine opportunity? The doubt was corrosive, seeping into every thought. By morning, my confidence had eroded significantly. For the first time since conceiving FinSmart AI, I wondered if I should just give up on the dream. The next few months were the darkest of my life. I continued my corporate job, coding banking software that I knew was mediocre at best, outdated at worst. Each day felt like a betrayal of my potential, but I had no clear path forward for FinSmart AI. Depression set in gradually. At first, it was just a heaviness when I woke up, a reluctance to face another day of unfulfilling work. Then it became harder to concentrate, to care about mundane tasks. I found myself staring blankly at my screen, minutes ticking by unnoticed. Mitchell, did you hear me? My manager's voice would snap me back to reality. We need those code reviews by end of day. Sorry, I'll get right on it. I'd reply automatically, forcing myself to focus on work that felt increasingly meaningless. I continued tinkering with FinSmart nights and weekends, but the progress was frustratingly slow. Working on it part-time meant that development that should have taken days stretched into weeks. The spark was fading, suffocated by exhaustion and doubt. Then came the news that hit like a physical blow. TechCrunch published an article about FutureFin, a new startup with a concept eerily similar to FinSmart. They had just secured $2 million in seed funding. I read the article during my lunch break and felt physically ill. They were executing my vision, but with resources, a team, and momentum. I downloaded their beta immediately. It was clunky, lacking the intuitive features I had planned for FinSmart, but the core concept was there. And they had the runway to improve rapidly. The window of opportunity was closing, just as I had feared. That evening, I created a spreadsheet calculating how long it would take to save $70,000 on my current salary while paying Boston rent and student loans. The answer: 5.4 years with aggressive saving. By then, the market would be dominated by established players. My opportunity would be long gone. I approached 2 banks about personal loans. The conversations were almost comical in their predictability. So this loan would be for, the loan officer at Cambridge Trust asked, reviewing my application. Business startup costs, I answered honestly. I see. And what collateral will you be providing? Well, none specifically, but I have excellent credit, Anne. Ms. Mitchell, he interrupted with a practiced smile, unsecured business loans for startups, without existing revenue, are extremely high risk. Without substantial collateral, or a cosigner with significant assets, I'm afraid we can't help you. The second bank was no different. Without my parents as cosigners, traditional financing was a dead end. My friends, initially supportive, began suggesting alternatives as weeks turned to months. What about pivoting to something less ambitious? Suggested Jenna during one of our coffee meetups. Maybe a consulting business using your finance tech skills. Lower startup costs, and you could build toward your app gradually. Or join an established fintech company, offered Mark. Get insider experience, make connections, maybe find mentors who could help launch your idea later. They meant well, but each suggestion felt like another person saying my dream was too big, too difficult, too risky. Each conversation left me more deflated. The breaking point came on a Tuesday in February. I was sitting in my car during lunch break, rain pattering on the roof, staring at an email from FutureFin announcing new features that mirrored my own roadmap for FinSmart. Something inside me cracked. I began crying, not gentle tears, but racking sobs that left me gasping for air. All the frustration, disappointment, and fear poured out at once. When the storm finally passed, I sat in numb silence, watching raindrops race down my windshield. I had never felt so trapped. I had the skills, the vision, the drive, but without capital, it was all worthless. My dreams were evaporating, while I remained stuck in corporate purgatory. That evening, exhausted and desperate, I typed into Google, how to fund a startup with no money, no connections, no rich family. The results were the usual unhelpful articles about bootstrapping businesses that required minimal upfront investment, not feasible for a tech platform needing full-time development. But buried in the search results was a Reddit thread in our entrepreneurs titled, "Found unconventional funding for my startup, after 50 rejections." I clicked without much hope. The post described how someone had found investors through online communities, after being rejected by traditional funding sources. The story resonated with me, though their industry was completely different. I had never been particularly active on Reddit, but that night, creating a throwaway account, I began browsing entrepreneurship, startups, and finance technology subreddits. For the first time in months, I felt a tiny spark rekindling. Here were people discussing ideas similar to mine, facing similar challenges. Some had overcome them. As the night grew late, that spark grew into a tentative flame of hope. Perhaps there was another way forward after all. At 2:14 a.m., with my apartment silent except for the hum of my laptop, I created a new Reddit post in Our Entrepreneurs. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for several minutes before I began typing. I've built an AI-driven personal finance platform that provides hyper-personalized financial guidance based on individual spending patterns and goals. Traditional investors want traction before funding, but I need funding to build for traction. Family rejected my request for seed money. Is this catch-22 solvable, or should I just give up? I spent over an hour crafting that post, trying to balance honesty with professionalism. I included enough technical details to establish credibility, without revealing proprietary aspects of my algorithm. I described the market opportunity with data points from my research. I outlined my background and qualifications. I even acknowledged potential challenges and competition. What I didn't share was how desperate I felt, how close I was to abandoning the whole project. Pride, I suppose. Before hitting submit, I read it over twice, wondering if this was a waste of time or, worse, if I'd be mocked for my naivety. The tech startup subreddits could be brutal to founders with half-baked ideas. But my idea wasn't half-baked, it was thoroughly researched and partially built. I took a deep breath and clicked post. Then I closed my laptop and fell into an exhausted sleep. The next morning, bleary-eyed from too little rest, I checked Reddit before even getting out of bed. My heart skipped when I saw the notification count, 47. The post had resonated far beyond my expectations. There were dozens of comments, most surprisingly supportive. This actually sounds promising. AI in personal finance is heating up fast. Have you considered an accelerator program? Y Combinator deadline for summer batch is approaching. Family money always comes with strings attached anyway. Maybe this rejection is a blessing. I scrolled through the comments, answering questions, thanking people for suggestions. Many recommended crowdfunding, but I explained why that was problematic for a financial product without a physical component. Then I saw a comment that made me sit up straight. Your concept sounds solid, but your post lacks specific details about the tech stack, AI implementation, and monetization strategy. If you've actually built what you claim, I'd like to know more. DM me. TechVenture92. Something about the directness and skepticism of this comment suggested someone with real experience. I immediately clicked to view their profile. The account was 3 years old with a history of thoughtful, technically sophisticated comments in venture capital and artificial intelligence subreddits. I sent a private message introducing myself more formally and offering to provide the additional details they requested. Then I showered and headed to work, checking my phone constantly for response. The reply came during my lunch break. Thanks for the additional info. Your approach to pattern recognition in financial behavior is interesting. I am curious about scalability and data security. Could you elaborate on how you're handling those aspects? Also, what's your user acquisition strategy for the first 10,000 users? This wasn't idle curiosity, these were the questions of someone seriously evaluating the business potential. I responded with detailed explanations, including my plans for end-to-end encryption and compliance with financial data regulations. Our back and forth continued throughout the day, becoming increasingly technical and specific. By evening, TechVenture92 had asked me questions about everything from database architecture to customer acquisition costs. Answering these questions was actually reinvigorating my own confidence in the project. I realized just how thoroughly I had thought through every aspect of FinSmart AI. Meanwhile, my original post continued gathering comments. Other users with technical backgrounds began weighing in with suggestions for features or asking insightful questions. Have you considered integrating open banking APIs to streamline the onboarding process? What's your approach to the cold start problem? Financial AI needs data to be useful, but users won't provide data until they see value. These weren't just random internet commenters, these were people who understood the space, the challenges, and the opportunities. For the first time in months, I was having meaningful discussions about FinSmart with people who took it seriously. One comment from a user named Finance Dev Guru particularly caught my attention. I'm a back-end developer specializing in financial systems integration. Your concept addresses a pain point I've experienced myself. If you're building a team, I'd be interested in contributing. Another user, Marketing Maven, wrote, I've worked on user acquisition for 2 fintech startups. Your target demographic and value proposition align with patterns I've seen succeed. Happy to share insights if helpful. It was surreal, strangers on the internet showing more interest and offering more concrete help than my own family had. A community was forming around my idea, validating it in ways traditional investors hadn't. The most significant development came 3 days after my initial post. TechVenture 92 sent a direct message that changed everything. I've evaluated your responses and research. I believe your concept has merit, but discussions like this have limitations. Would you be open to a video call to discuss this further? I'm particularly interested in your background, why you're passionate about this problem, and seeing a demo of what you've built so far. My heart raced as I read those words. This was no longer just a Reddit discussion, this was potentially a real business opportunity. I agreed immediately, and we scheduled a call for the following evening. That night, I barely slept, my mind racing with possibilities. Who was TechVenture 92 in real life? Were they a potential investor, a co-founder, or just someone curious about the technology? Was this the breakthrough I'd been hoping for, or would it lead to another dead end? Regardless of the outcome, something fundamental had shifted. The community's response had reignited my belief in FinSmart AI. Even if this particular connection didn't pan out, I no longer felt alone in my vision. For the first time since my parents' rejection, I felt genuinely hopeful about the future. I spent the entire day preparing for the video call with TechVenture 92. I polished my presentation, rehearsed my pitch, and set up my apartment's small living room to look as professional as possible. I even wore my interview suit, overkill for a video call with someone from Reddit, perhaps, but it helped me feel composed. As the scheduled time approached, my anxiety peaked. What if they weren't who they claimed to be? What if this was an elaborate way to steal my idea? I pushed the thoughts aside. I had to take this chance. At exactly 8 p.m., the video call request came through. Taking a deep breath, I accepted. The face that appeared wasn't what I expected. Instead of the middle-aged tech bro I had imagined, I saw a woman in her early 40s with short grey-streaked hair and rectangular glasses. Hello Samantha, I'm Michael Kim, she said with a slight smile. Also known as TechVenture 92. Hi Michael, I replied, momentarily thrown, but recovering quickly. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me. Your Reddit post caught my attention, because it reminded me of my own journey 15 years ago, she explained. I had a similar experience with rejection before founding my first company. As Michael told her story, my nervousness began to fade. She had been a software engineer at Amazon in the early 2000s before leaving to start a data analytics company. After several successful exits, She now divided her time between angel investing and serving as CTO for a cybersecurity firm. "So," she said, leaning toward the camera, "show me what you've built." For the next hour, I demonstrated the FinSmart AI prototype, explaining the technology, the market opportunity, and my vision for growth. Michael asked tough, specific questions that probed the boundaries of my knowledge and planning. Unlike my parents' objections, which stemmed from a general fear of risk, her challenges were precise and technical, exactly the kind of scrutiny the idea needed. "Your algorithm for identifying spending patterns is impressive," she said as I concluded the demo. "And I appreciate that you've thought through the regulatory compliance aspects. Many technical founders overlook that." "Thank you," I replied, feeling a mixture of pride and relief. "I've tried to be thorough in my planning." "There are gaps, of course," she continued. "Your user acquisition strategy needs work, and the UI could be more intuitive. But these are solvable problems with the right resources and team." My heart raced. Was she implying what I thought she was? "Samantha, I'll be direct. I'm interested in investing in FinSmart AI. I believe in both the concept and, more importantly, in you as a founder. You've shown persistence and thoughtfulness in the face of rejection. Those are traits I value in entrepreneurs I back." I tried to maintain my professional demeanor, but I'm sure my shock was visible. "That's incredible. Thank you for your confidence in me." "Don't thank me yet," Michael said with a wry smile. "This is a business decision, not charity. I'd propose investing $50,000 for a 15% equity stake, plus advisory support in areas where you need strengthening, particularly in go-to-market strategy and investor relations." The terms were fair, better than fair compared to what the Boston angel investors had offered. But what happened next surprised me even more. Additionally, Michael continued, "There are several other Redditors from the thread who have reached out to me privately expressing interest in your concept. With your permission, I'd like to organize a group call to discuss the possibility of a small syndicated round." 2 days later, I found myself on a video call with 6 people, Michael and 5 other professionals who had found me through Reddit. There was Jason, a UX designer who had worked for 3 financial apps, Elena, a marketing executive specializing in fintech, Raj, a compliance expert in financial regulations, Dave, a former bank technology officer, and Lynn, a data scientist with experience in AI applications. Each introduced themselves and explained why FinSmart AI resonated with them. Jason talked about the frustrations he'd encountered designing interfaces for financial products that couldn't deliver truly personalized experiences. Elena described the market gap she'd observed between traditional financial advisors and simplistic budgeting apps. Their insights validated my vision from multiple professional perspectives. By the end of that call, I had secured commitments for what we jokingly called the Reddit round of funding. Michael, $50,000 for 15% equity. Jason, $5,000 for 1.5% equity plus UX consulting. Elena, $7,500 for 2.5% equity plus marketing strategy. Raj, $3,000 for 1% equity plus compliance consulting. Dave, $5,000 for 1.5% equity. Lynn, $2,500 for 0.75% equity plus technical consulting. In total, $73,000 for 22.25% of the company, almost exactly what I had asked my parents for, but with added expertise and connections. Over the following weeks, we formalized the arrangements with proper legal documentation. Michael recommended her lawyer who specialized in startup structuring, helping us create agreements that protected everyone's interests while setting the company up for potential future funding rounds. The most surreal moment came when I called my parents to tell them what had happened. I hadn't spoken to them much since the dinner where they'd rejected my proposal, our conversations limited to brief, slightly awkward check-ins. "You did what?" my father asked, clearly struggling to process what I was telling him. "I found investors through Reddit," I repeated. "Professional tech investors and experts who believe in FinSmart. Online. You're getting money from people you met online." My mother's voice was thick with concern. "Samantha, that sounds incredibly dangerous." I explained about the video calls, the professional backgrounds I'd verified, the formal legal agreements. I told them about Michael's successful exits and the expertise each investor brought. There was a long silence on the other end. "Well," my father finally said, his voice a mixture of emotions I couldn't quite identify. "I hope you know what you're doing." It wasn't approval or support, but it wasn't outright dismissal either. It was acknowledgement that I was forging my own path, with or without their blessing. As I hung up the phone, I felt a complex swirl of emotions, vindication, certainly, but also a lingering sadness that my own parents couldn't see what these strangers had immediately recognized, the value in my vision and my capability to execute it. But those feelings were overshadowed by excitement and determination. With funding secured and a team of advisors in place, I could finally make FinSmart AI a reality. The next day, I submitted my 2 weeks' notice at my corporate job. The real journey was about to begin. The day I walked out of my corporate office for the last time was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. I had grown accustomed to the predictable rhythm of employment, regular paychecks, structured workdays, clear expectations. Now I was stepping into the chaos of entrepreneurship, where nothing was guaranteed except my own commitment. My first official day, as a full-time founder, began at 6 a.m. in my apartment. I had converted my small dining area into an office space, with a whiteboard mounted on the wall and sticky notes creating a colorful mosaic of tasks and ideas. I brewed a strong cup of coffee and sat down at my computer, overwhelmed momentarily by the magnitude of what lay ahead. Then I opened Slack and found messages waiting from my Reddit investors. Michael had set up channels for different aspects of the business: development, marketing, legal, and general discussion. Seeing their names and encouraging messages grounded me. I wasn't doing this alone. We established a weekly rhythm of video calls, an all-hands meeting on Monday mornings to align priorities, and individual check-ins throughout the week based on specific needs. While my investors weren't full-time team members, they were deeply engaged advisors who contributed far more than money. The first 3 months focused on development. With the runway provided by our funding, I could dedicate myself completely to coding the full version of FinSmart AI. Lynn, our data scientist investor, provided invaluable guidance on optimizing the machine learning algorithms. Jason reviewed UI designs and user flows, pushing me to simplify complex features. We faced our first major technical challenge, when the initial version of the pattern recognition algorithm produced inconsistent results with larger test datasets. For 3 days straight, I barely slept, debugging and refactoring until I identified the scaling issue. Lynn suggested an architectural change that ultimately solved the problem, but not before I had experienced my first founder meltdown, a tearful 2 a.m. call to Michael questioning whether I was in over my head. "Every founder has these moments," she assured me. "The difference between successful and failed startups often comes down to persistence through these exact crises." By month 4, we had a robust beta version ready for testing. Elena activated her network to recruit 100 beta users from diverse financial backgrounds. Their feedback was brutal but necessary. The onboarding process was confusing. Certain features were buried in unintuitive menus, and the initial insights weren't compelling enough to encourage continued use. We iterated rapidly. Jason conducted user interviews to understand pain points. I rewrote significant portions of the interface code. Michael connected us with a behavioral economist who helped refine how financial insights were presented to maximize user engagement and action. The breakthrough came in month 5, with what we called the aha moment engine. We discovered that users were most engaged when the platform identified specific, actionable insights within their first week. We rebuilt the onboarding to prioritize delivering these quick wins, showing users something valuable about their finances they didn't already know, within days of signing up. When we launched the refined beta to 250 new users, the difference was stark. Engagement rates tripled. Retention after 30 days jumped from 22% to 68%. Users were actively uploading more financial data and completing their profiles, crucial steps for the AI to provide truly personalized guidance. This is product-market fit territory, Michael told me during our weekly call, excitement evident in her voice. You've found the value proposition that resonates. Month 6 brought our first major crisis. A competitor launched a similar feature to our core offering, and their announcement was picked up by TechCrunch. Our small team, now including 2 part-time developers I'd brought on with our remaining funds, went into overdrive. We accelerated our roadmap to release our distinctive predictive spending analysis feature, which gave us a clear differentiation point. The public launch came 8 months after securing funding. Elena orchestrated a marketing campaign targeting financial independence communities, personal finance bloggers, and millennial professionals. Dave leveraged his banking contacts to arrange mentions in several financial newsletters. Our launch day goal had been 1,000 sign-ups. We hit 4,782. Growth was steady rather than explosive, which Michael assured me was healthier for a financial product where trust was paramount. By month 10, we had 10,000 active users. The freemium model was working. About 8% of users upgraded to the premium version, providing our first meaningful revenue. The user stories became our greatest motivation. A recently divorced mother wrote to tell us how FinSmart had helped her regain financial confidence. A young couple credited the platform for identifying savings that accelerated their home down payment by 8 months. A freelance designer shared how the irregular income tools had reduced his financial anxiety. Behind these successes were countless late nights, technical disasters, and moments of doubt. There was the server crash, when a popular finance YouTuber mentioned us. The week I got sick and could barely code, but pushed through anyway. The terrifying moment when a potential legal issue with a banking integration threatened our entire model, until Raj found a compliance workaround. Michael proved invaluable during these crises, her calm experience providing perspective when I was too deep in the details. Focus on the problems worth solving became her mantra to me. Some fires need fighting. Others can burn themselves out. As we approached the 1-year mark, 2 significant developments occurred almost simultaneously. First, our user base crossed 50,000, with paid conversions holding steady at 8.3%. Second, and more unexpectedly, we received acquisition interest from a mid-sized financial services company. The offer wasn't life-changing, $3.2 million, but represented a solid return for our early investors. I scheduled an emergency call with our Reddit investors to discuss. It's your company and ultimately your decision, Michael said, but my advice is to decline. You've proven the concept works. The next phase of growth could be substantially more valuable. Everyone agreed, even though accepting would have given them all respectable returns on their investments. Their belief in FinSmart's future potential outweighed immediate gains. Declining that offer led to our next phase, raising a proper Series A round. Michael made introductions to several VC firms she had relationships with. Armed with our user metrics, revenue growth, and clear differentiation from competitors, we entered these discussions from a position of strength rather than desperation. Ironclad Ventures, a firm specializing in fintech, led our Series A with $4.5 million at a $22 million valuation. The round included strategic investors from the financial services industry, bringing our total raised to just over $5 million. As we signed the Series A paperwork, I thought about how different this felt from my desperate attempt to secure $70,000 from my parents. Now venture capitalists were competing for the opportunity to invest millions in my vision. 2 weeks after closing the round, I invited my parents to visit our new office. We had graduated from my apartment to a modest space in a Boston tech hub, with 8 full-time employees and a growing user base. My father walked around silently, examining the awards we'd won and the user testimonials displayed on the wall. My mother asked polite questions about what everyone did. Before leaving, my father pulled me aside. "I still don't fully understand what your company does," he admitted, "but I can see that you've built something real here. I'm sorry we didn't support you when you first asked." It wasn't quite the vindication fantasy I'd occasionally indulged in during tough moments, but it was an acknowledgement. Sometimes, that's enough. That evening, I sent a company-wide email announcing that Sarah, my younger sister, who had always believed in me, would be joining as our new marketing manager. The Reddit family that had made FinSmart possible was growing in unexpected ways. Today, FinSmart AI serves over 650,000 users across the United States, with plans to expand internationally next quarter. Our premium subscription base has grown to 72,000 paying customers, and we've developed enterprise partnerships with 3 regional banks who license our technology. Our latest funding round valued the company at $47 million, a figure that still feels surreal when I remember working from my tiny apartment dining table less than 3 years ago. Our team has grown to 34 full-time employees, with offices in Boston and a small satellite office in Austin. Sarah has built a marketing department that consistently delivers industry-leading conversion rates, proving that belief in her abilities wasn't just sibling loyalty. What's most meaningful isn't the valuation or user numbers, but the impact we're making. Our users have collectively identified over $87 million in potential savings, paid off $32 million in high-interest debt, and increased their retirement contributions by an average of 23%. Behind these statistics are real people making better financial decisions and feeling more confident about their futures. The Reddit investors who took a chance on me have remained deeply involved in the company. Michael serves on our board of directors, providing strategic guidance through each growth phase. Jason heads our design team. Elena consults on major marketing initiatives. Raj continues to advise on compliance matters as regulations evolve. They've transitioned from strangers on the internet to my business family, people who believed in my vision when those closest to me couldn't see its potential. My relationship with my parents has evolved too. The initial awkwardness following their rejection gradually gave way to cautious interest, then pride as FinSmart gained recognition. They attended our Series B funding announcement dinner, visibly uncomfortable among venture capitalists and tech executives, but making an effort to understand this world that was so foreign to them. "We were wrong about your company," my father admitted during a recent family dinner. "But we were just trying to protect you from disappointment." "I know, Dad," I replied, and I meant it. Their rejection wasn't malicious. It came from a lifetime of prioritizing security over opportunity, certainty over potential. They simply couldn't see the possibilities that were so clear to me. This journey has taught me lessons I never expected to learn when I first conceived of FinSmart AI. First, rejection often redirects you to better opportunities. Had my parents funded me, I would have missed connecting with the experienced advisors who brought crucial expertise along with their capital. Their no led me to a far stronger yes elsewhere. Second, your tribe might not be who you expect. The strangers on Reddit, who became my business family, shared my values and vision in ways my biological family couldn't. They understood the problems I was solving because they'd experienced them themselves. Finding your people, those who genuinely get what you're trying to build, is often more important than securing funding. Third, timing and persistence matter more than initial conditions. Had I given up after my parents' rejection, FinSmart wouldn't exist. Had I waited years to save enough capital independently, the market opportunity would have vanished. Pushing forward despite obstacles, finding creative solutions, and refusing to abandon the vision were crucial to success. Perhaps most importantly, I've learned that entrepreneurship isn't just about building products, it's about building relationships. The connections formed through this journey with investors, team members, users, and even competitors have been the true foundation of our success. Technology can be replicated, genuine human relationships cannot. The irony isn't lost on me that a company built around artificial intelligence has taught me so much about human connection. 6 months ago, I launched the Mitchell Fund, a $500,000 angel fund specifically targeting overlooked founders, particularly those rejected by traditional funding sources, including family support. We've already backed 7 startups, all founded by entrepreneurs with stories reminiscent of my own. Paying forward the chance I was given feels like closing a circle. Sarah often reminds me of what I told her the night our parents rejected my funding request. At least one Mitchell believes in me. Now many do, but I'll never forget who was first. Sometimes a single voice of belief can sustain you until others join the chorus. As I look toward FinSmart's future, I remain grateful for that initial rejection that felt so devastating at the time. It forced me to find my true supporters, to prove my commitment beyond what comfort would have required, and to build something stronger than would have been possible with easy acceptance. What about you? Have you ever had a dream rejected by those closest to you? Did you find support in unexpected places? Or are you currently at that crossroads, wondering whether to persist or pivot? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this journey resonated with you, please like and subscribe to see more entrepreneurial stories that go beyond the highlight reel to the messy, beautiful reality of building something from nothing. And if you know someone struggling to find support for their vision, share this video. It might be exactly what they need to hear today. Remember, sometimes the most meaningful yes comes after the most painful no. Thank you for being part of this journey with me.